you're not being humble. You're being a coward. There's a difference between humility and cowardice. And most people have confused the two their entire lives. Humility means you don't need constant validation to know your worth. Cowardice means you're too afraid to enforce your worth when others try to diminish it. You call it being understanding when you accept poor treatment. You call it being patient when you tolerate disrespect. You call it being loving when you enable toxic behavior. But what you're really being is afraid. Afraid of confrontation. Afraid of being alone. Afraid of what people will say if you actually demand the respect you deserve. Your fear has dressed itself up as virtue. And it's destroying your life one compromise at a time. There was once an eagle that found itself in a chicken coop. Every morning, this magnificent bird would spread its wings, and the chickens would mock it. Look at you, trying to be special. They would cluck. You eat the same corn we eat. You sleep in the same coop we sleep in. What makes you think you're different? Day after day, the eagle listened to their ridicule. It tried to explain its nature, tried to show them how it could soar, tried to prove its worth. But the chickens had already made up their minds. One morning, without a single word, the eagle simply opened its wings and flew away. The chickens never saw it again. They continued their pecking and scratching, never knowing they had rejected royalty. You see, the eagle understood something profound that most people never learn. Your value is not determined by those who refuse to see it. When people disrespect you, when they treat you as ordinary despite your extraordinary nature, you don't owe them an explanation. You don't owe them a performance. You don't owe them proof of your worth. You owe them nothing but your absence. This is perhaps one of the most difficult lessons for good-hearted people to learn. We've been conditioned to believe that we must fight for respect, that we must argue our case, that we must somehow convince others of our value. But here's what I've learned after years of studying human behavior. People who don't respect you already have all the information they need. Your character, your contributions, your kindness, your excellence. They've seen it all. Their disrespect is not about lack of information. It's about their choice to remain blind. When someone consistently treats you poorly, when they dismiss your ideas, when they speak to you with contempt, when they take your presence for granted, they are telling you exactly who they are. Believe them. More importantly, believe in yourself enough to walk away. But why silence? Why not tell them how you feel? Why not give them a piece of your mind? Because silence is the language of power. When you argue with someone who disrespects you, you're essentially begging them to see your worth. You're negotiating for basic human dignity. You're lowering yourself to their level, trying to convince them that you deserve what should be freely given. Think about it this way. When you have to convince someone that you deserve respect, you've already lost. Respect is not something you earn through explanation. It's something you command through your presence and your standards. The moment you start explaining why you deserve better treatment, you've entered into a negotiation where you're already at a disadvantage. There's a psychological principle at work here that most people don't understand. When you react to disrespect with anger, arguments or emotional outbursts, you actually reinforce the disrespectful behavior. You give the other person power over your emotions. You show them that their opinion matters so much to you that it can destabilize your peace. This becomes a cycle where they continue to disrespect you because they know they can get a reaction. But silence is different. Silence is mysterious. Silence is powerful. When you walk away without explanation, you leave people with questions they can't answer. They wonder what you're thinking. They wonder if they went too far. They wonder if they've lost something valuable. Your silence forces them to confront their own behavior without you having to say a word. I've watched people spend years trying to gain respect from individuals who have already decided they don't deserve it. They exhaust themselves explaining, proving, performing, hoping that somehow, some way, they'll finally get the recognition they crave. But here's the truth. You cannot force someone to respect you. Respect is a gift that must be freely given. And some people simply don't have that gift to offer. The most successful people I know have learned this lesson early. They understand that their energy is precious, their time is valuable, and their peace is non-negotiable. They don't waste any of these resources on people who don't appreciate them. Instead, they invest in relationships where their value is recognized and celebrated. This doesn't mean you become cold or harsh. It doesn't mean you stop being kind or compassionate. It means you become selective about where you invest your kindness. It means you understand the difference between being loving and being a doormat. It means you protect your energy so you can give your best to those who truly deserve it. Your personal dignity is not up for negotiation. It's not something you can compromise on and still maintain your self-respect. When someone treats you poorly, they're asking you to accept less than you deserve. When you tolerate disrespect, you're agreeing to their terms. You're saying, yes, this is how I can be treated. But when you walk away silently, you're making a different statement. You're saying, I know my worth and I won't accept anything less. You're teaching them that access to you is a privilege, not a right. You're showing them that your presence in their life is valuable, whether they recognize it or not. The beauty of this approach is that it preserves your dignity while creating space for better relationships to enter your life. Every moment you spend trying to convince someone to respect you is a moment you're not available for someone who already does. Every ounce of energy you waste on disrespectful people is energy you can't invest in those who value you. Remember, the eagle didn't stay in the chicken coop trying to convince the chickens of its worth. It simply flew away to find its own kind, to soar with other eagles who understood its nature. Your job is not to make everyone see your value. Your job is to honor your value by surrounding yourself with people who already recognize it. Let me tell you about Marcus, a brilliant businessman who built a successful consulting firm from nothing for 3 years. He partnered with a man named David who constantly undermined him in meetings, took credit for his ideas, and spoke to him like he was incompetent. Marcus tried everything. He had honest conversations. He documented his contributions. He even brought in mediators. Nothing changed. David continued to disrespect him publicly while benefiting from his genius privately. One Tuesday morning, Marcus walked into the office, cleared out his desk, and left a simple resignation letter on David's desk. No explanations, no accusations, no emotional outbursts, just a professional notice that he was ending the partnership effective immediately. David called him 17 times that day. Marcus didn't answer a single call. Within 6 months, David's business crumbled without Marcus's expertise. Today, Marcus runs a multi-million-dollar company, while David is still trying to figure out what went wrong. This is the magnetism of mystery in action. When you disappear without explanation, you create a vacuum that the human mind desperately wants to fill. People become obsessed with understanding why you left. They replay every interaction, searching for clues. They realize, often too late, what they had and what they lost. There's something deeply psychological happening here that most people don't understand. The human brain is wired to want closure, to understand cause and effect. When you walk away silently, you deny them this closure. You leave them with unanswered questions that will haunt them far longer than any argument ever could. Your silence becomes more powerful than any words you could have spoken. Think about the last time someone just stopped responding to you without explanation. Remember how it consumed your thoughts. Remember how you wondered what you did wrong. Remember how you suddenly became aware of their value in your life. This is the power you wield when you choose silence over confrontation. Most people, when they're disrespected, want to have the last word. They want to tell the other person exactly how they feel. They want to make sure the disrespectful person understands the impact of their behavior. But here's what happens when you do this. You give them information they can use against you. You show them your vulnerabilities. You reveal exactly which of their actions affect you most. When Marcus explained to David how his behavior hurt him, David didn't change his behavior. He refined it. David learned exactly which buttons to push to get the biggest reaction. Your explanations become their ammunition. Your emotional responses become their entertainment. But when you withdraw strategically, when you remove yourself from their presence without fanfare, you retain all the power. You keep them guessing. You force them to confront the consequences of their actions without giving them the satisfaction of knowing they got to you. This is not about being vindictive or cruel. This is about being strategic with your energy and your presence. Your attention is valuable. Your time is precious. Your emotional investment is limited. When you spend these resources trying to convince someone to treat you better, you're essentially giving them more of what they already don't appreciate. Consider how much energy you waste when you argue with someone who disrespects you. You lose sleep thinking about what you should have said. You rehearse conversations in your head. You strategize about how to make them understand. You exhaust yourself trying to win a game where the other person holds all the cards because they've already decided you don't matter. Now consider the energy you conserve when you simply walk away. You sleep peacefully because you're not replaying arguments. You focus on productive activities because you're not plotting your next move in a pointless battle. You invest your emotional resources in people who actually value them. The withdrawal strategy works because it shifts the dynamic completely. When you're chasing someone's respect, you're in a position of weakness. You're the one who needs something from them. But when you withdraw, you become the one with something they want. Your presence, your contributions, your energy. Suddenly, the power balance shifts. I've seen this principle work in marriages where one spouse took the other for granted. I've seen it work in business relationships where partners didn't value each other's contributions. I've seen it work in friendships where one person consistently gave more than they received. In every case, the withdrawal created an immediate awareness of value that years of explanation couldn't achieve. But here's the crucial part. Your withdrawal must be genuine. You can't walk away as a manipulation tactic, hoping they'll chase you. You can't disappear with the secret agenda of making them miss you. True strategic withdrawal means you're genuinely done. You're not playing games. You're protecting your dignity. You're not trying to teach them a lesson. You're teaching yourself to value your own worth. When your departure is authentic, when you're truly releasing them from your life rather than trying to control their response, that's when the real power emerges. That's when your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. That's when they realize they didn't just lose an argument. They lost access to something irreplaceable. There was a gifted pianist named Maria who played at a small cafe every Friday night. For months, she poured her heart into every performance, playing complex pieces that took years to master. The audience would talk through her music. Some would even take phone calls during her most beautiful solos. The cafe owner paid her barely enough to cover her gas money home. Maria kept telling herself that at least she was sharing her gift, that maybe one day they would truly listen. On Friday evening, as she played a piece that had taken her 5 years to perfect, a man at the front table answered his phone and conducted a loud business conversation right through her entire performance. That night, Maria packed up her piano bench, thanked the cafe owner politely, and never returned. 3 months later, she was playing at concert halls where audiences paid hundreds of dollars just to hear her breathe between notes. Maria learned what many people never do. There's a profound difference between being humble and being a doormat. Humility means you don't need constant praise to know your worth. Being a doormat means you accept treatment that contradicts your value. Maria was humble about her talent, but she was also smart enough to recognize when her pearls were being thrown before swine. You must develop an internal compass for recognizing genuine respect versus surface level politeness. Real respect shows up in consistency. It doesn't come and go based on mood or convenience. When someone truly respects you, they don't speak to you kindly in private and dismiss you in public. They don't praise your work when they need something and criticize it when they don't. Genuine respect is visible in the small details. It's in how they introduce you to others. It's in whether they remember what matters to you. It's in how they respond when you're not in the room. It's in whether they protect your reputation when you're not there to defend it. These are your worth markers, and you must learn to read them accurately. Most people can spot obvious disrespect, the name calling, the public humiliation, the deliberate cruelty. But subtle disrespect is more dangerous because it erodes your self-worth slowly, like water wearing away stone. It's the colleague who consistently interrupts you in meetings. It's the friend who only calls when they need something. It's the family member who dismisses your opinions but expects you to validate theirs. Your nervous system knows the difference even when your mind makes excuses. Pay attention to how you feel after spending time with certain people. Do you feel energized or drained? Do you feel valued or diminished? Do you feel heard or invisible? Your emotional responses are data points telling you everything you need to know about how others truly view you. There are people in your life right now who light up when they see you coming. They remember your stories. They celebrate your victories. They check on you during difficult times without being asked. They create space for your voice in conversations. They defend your character when you're not present. These people have already voted on your worth, and their vote is yes. Then there are others who see you as useful but not valuable, convenient but not cherished, present but not important. They take your kindness for weakness, your availability for desperation, your loyalty for foolishness. These people have also voted on your worth, and their vote is no. The tragedy is when you spend more time trying to convert the no votes than cultivating the yes votes. You exhaust yourself trying to prove your value to people who have already decided you don't have any, while neglecting the people who recognized your worth from day one. Building unshakable self-worth means your value doesn't fluctuate based on external validation. It means you know who you are when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when no one is affirming you. It means your worth is established by your character, your integrity, your contributions to the world, not by other people's opinions or treatment of you. When you truly understand your value, you stop auditioning for acceptance. You stop performing for approval. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already made up their minds about you. You simply show up as yourself and let people decide if they want access to that gift or not. Now that you understand your worth and can recognize when it's not being honored, you need to master the art of departure. This is not about slamming doors or burning bridges. This is about graceful withdrawal that preserves your dignity while communicating your boundaries without saying a word. The strategic exit follows a simple 3-step process, but each step requires discipline and emotional maturity. First, you stop investing. You don't suddenly become rude or hostile, but you stop going the extra mile. You stop volunteering for additional responsibilities. You stop being the one who always reaches out first. You stop giving your best energy to someone who doesn't appreciate it. This isn't punishment, it's preservation. Second, you create emotional distance. You become cordial but not close, professional but not personal. You answer their questions but don't offer additional information. You respond to their requests but don't anticipate their needs. You treat them exactly how they've shown you they want to be treated, as someone who doesn't value deep connection with you. Third, you physically remove yourself when possible and appropriate. You don't attend events where you know you'll be disrespected. You don't accept invitations from people who consistently treat you poorly. You stop making time for individuals who waste your time. You quietly withdraw your presence from spaces where your value isn't recognized throughout this process. You say nothing about what you're doing or why you're doing it. You don't announce your boundaries, you simply enforce them. You don't explain your standards, you simply maintain them. your actions become your communication. And your absence becomes your message. This approach is powerful because it forces people to confront the consequences of their behavior naturally. When the person who always covered their mistakes stops covering for them, they face the full weight of their irresponsibility. When the friend who always initiated contact stops calling, they experience the loneliness they created. When the colleague who always picked up their slack stops compensating, they must finally carry their own weight. But here's what makes this truly strategic. You're not doing it to change them. You're doing it to honor yourself. The moment you withdraw, hoping they'll change their behavior, you're still giving them control over your actions. True strategic withdrawal means you've accepted that they may never change. And you're okay with that because your peace is no longer dependent on their transformation. The ripple effect of your departure teaches everyone around you how people of value should be treated. When you refuse to accept disrespect, you raise the standard for everyone who comes after you. Your colleagues learn that talented people won't tolerate being undervalued. Your friends learn that genuine relationships require mutual respect. Your family learns that love doesn't mean accepting abuse. Some people will test your resolve when you begin to withdraw. They'll try to pull you back into old patterns with promises of change or temporary improvements in behavior. This is where your discipline matters most. Real change is consistent and sustained, not reactive and temporary. Don't confuse a moment of panic over losing you with genuine transformation. Creating space for people who will honor your value is the ultimate goal of strategic withdrawal. Every toxic relationship you release creates room for a healthy one to enter. Every disrespectful person you distance yourself from makes space for someone who will celebrate your presence. Every situation you remove yourself from opens a door to better opportunities. I want to tell you about a woman named Victoria who worked as a project manager at a mid-sized marketing firm for 3 years. Victoria poured her heart into her work, staying late to perfect presentations, covering for colleagues who missed deadlines, and accepting blame for failures that weren't her fault. Her boss, Mr. Thompson, had a habit of publicly criticizing her in meetings while privately relying on her expertise to solve every crisis. Victoria's colleagues took advantage of her helpful nature, dumping their responsibilities on her desk with casual comments like, "You're so good at this stuff," or "You don't mind helping out, do you?" Her friends constantly canceled plans at the last minute, knowing Victoria would understand. Her family called her only when they needed money or favors, but were mysteriously unavailable when she needed support. For years, Victoria told herself she was being a good person, a team player, a loving daughter and friend. She made excuses for everyone's behavior. "They're just stressed," she would say about her boss. "They're going through a tough time," she would rationalize about her friends. Family is family, she would remind herself when relatives treated her like a personal bank. But something changed the day Victoria overheard Mr. Thompson talking to a client on the phone. "Don't worry," he was saying. "I'll handle this personally. I have someone who can take care of all the details." That someone was Victoria, but he spoke as if she were invisible, as if her contributions were his accomplishments. That afternoon, Victoria made a decision that would transform her entire life. She stopped staying late to fix other people's mistakes. When colleagues tried to dump their work on her, she politely said, "I'm sure you'll figure it out." When friends canceled plans, she made new ones without inviting them back. When family members called asking for money, she started saying, "I can't help with that right now." The reactions were immediate and revealing. Mr. Thompson, facing his first real crisis without Victoria's backup, panicked and tried to blame her for not volunteering to help. Her colleagues, suddenly forced to handle their own responsibilities, complained that she had become selfish. Her friends accused her of changing and becoming cold. Her family said she was forgetting where she came from. But something miraculous happened in the space Victoria created by refusing to accept poor treatment. A new colleague named James noticed her excellent work and recommended her for a position at his previous company. Within 6 months, Victoria was offered a senior management role with a 40% salary increase and a boss who publicly credited her achievements. The friends who had cancelled on her were replaced by people who valued her time and planned activities around her schedule. New colleagues invited her to lunch, not because they needed something, but because they enjoyed her company. Her family relationships improved dramatically once she stopped being the family ATM. And the relatives who truly cared about her began treating her with the respect she deserved. This transformation didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't easy. Victoria had to overcome years of conditioning that told her being helpful meant accepting mistreatment. She had to learn the difference between kindness and enabling. She had to develop the courage to disappoint people who had been taking advantage of her generosity. The most challenging part was dealing with her own guilt. Victoria had been raised to believe that good people sacrifice themselves for others. That love means accepting whatever treatment people give you. That setting boundaries was selfish. She had to reprogram her entire understanding of what healthy relationships look like. But as Victoria's life improved, you realize something profound. When you tolerate disrespect, you're not just hurting yourself, you're enabling the disrespectful person to continue hurting others. When you accept poor treatment, you're teaching the world that people like you can be treated poorly. When you fail to enforce your boundaries, you're training others to ignore boundaries completely. Your standards become a teaching tool for everyone around you. When you walk away from disrespect, you're not just protecting yourself, you're showing others what self-respect looks like. You're demonstrating that quality people have options, that valuable individuals don't beg for basic human dignity, that excellence attracts excellence. The compound effect of maintaining high standards is remarkable. When you consistently refuse to accept less than you deserve, you begin attracting people who offer more than you expected. Your energy, no longer drained by toxic relationships, becomes available for meaningful connections. Your time, no longer wasted on ungrateful people, can be invested in those who appreciate it. Building a circle that celebrates rather than tolerates you requires patience and intentionality. You must be willing to have a smaller circle if it means having a more supportive one. You must choose quality over quantity in every relationship. You must value your peace more than you value being liked by everyone. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or harsh. It means you become selective. It means you understand that your energy, attention, and love are gifts to be given wisely, not commodities to be handed out freely to anyone who asks. It means you recognize that you can be kind to everyone without being closed to everyone. Victoria's story teaches us that transformation is possible at any stage of life. No matter how long you've accepted poor treatment, no matter how many people have taken advantage of your good nature, no matter how deeply you've been conditioned to settle for less, you can change your standards and change your life. The legacy you leave is not just about your own happiness. It's about the example you set for others. When you refuse to accept disrespect, you give permission to everyone watching you to do the same. When you walk away from situations that don't serve you, you show others that they have the same option. When you build a life filled with people who value you, you prove that such a life is possible. Your silence in the face of disrespect, your quiet withdrawal from toxic situations, your consistent refusal to accept less than you deserve, these actions ripple outward, creating waves of change that touch lives you may never know about. You become a living example of what it means to honor your own worth. And in doing so, you teach the world how to treat people of value. Remember, you are not responsible for changing disrespectful people, but you are responsible for not allowing them to change you. Walk away silently. Walk away with dignity and walk toward a life that celebrates the masterpiece you truly are.